But we had the argument where she's like, look, I'm not your mom, and she's right. But and I didn't feel like I was treating her that way. But my actions had my actions without communicating had put her in that spot
Right.
where she felt that way. And so one of the things we learned to do with so that we wouldn't have a massive argument, and this is one, it's scientific. Two, it's proven. Like it's at least for me. And I find that when all else fails, I just simply go. Well, I'll start the conversation off with, "Promise you won't get mad." And
Does that work?
sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I feel like it's still content based.
Right,
we're
right,
still
right.
it's still in the beta phase. But I've like I had a conversation with her. One time where I was like, "Look, promise you won't get mad." And what it was I was looking at changing careers. And we had a long conversation, and she's like, "I don't know why you think I'd be mad at you about it." I'm like, "Well, at least, when I start the conversation off that way, it puts you in the right mindset to accept information that you may not like or we may have a disagreement over, versus me just throwing it out there and us going into this big fight, or not even a fight, but just where one of us feels like we're not hurt,
Right.
and so it kind of sets a playing field for it. And so what I found was when we start doing that, now she knows what's expected. Hey, this is not just going to be me, bullshitting and come up with some dumb plan at the house or whatever. This is something that's obviously important, and it sometimes a lot of times it's never got anything that she would get mad about.
Right.
But it's just setting that tone, say, hey, this is a serious conversation, and because I think one of the worst phrases that has existed in humanity, or at least for guys, and this is no matter where you live in the world or even what time period. I think when you come home and your wife goes, "Hey, we need to talk,"
Right. Because
like
God only knows where that's
you
going.
don't know one you did something wrong. Just like for all you younger guys, when she says that, no matter what you think you did something wrong.
Right.
And there's not going to be enough money in the house to cover whatever project she's got, or is it going to be something that you thought you were comfortable, now you're not? Like
Right.
something is
Right.
going on here, and I think that phrase strikes fear in the heart of a lot of guys, and I think that might be why we don't talk a lot.
Right. Right. And I think so. There's two things with it, and one of them is you can be 100% right and still be wrong.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is you could, like your argument with the I just work 12, sometimes 16-hour days or whatever, and you're not doing enough. You're right. You're tired, but you still have a responsibility
Right.
at the house to help her, or vice versa. It doesn't always have to be a man working. And so you could be dead right, but still be dead wrong in that same breath. But the one analogy that I've always hated but had to respect was the aspect of say I'm sorry as a man in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I've always hated it. I've always thought that it was one sided, and just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're always right. But if you step up to that plate, and even if you're not wrong, argument was valid. You were nail on the head on every single point that you made in that argument. You walked away feeling like you
Right.
won the argument. You've got to take into account what you've lost in the argument. And the problem is we spend too much time focusing on who's right and who's wrong, who won and who lost, instead of taking the time to go, number one, I am sorry, because I don't want you to feel that I dominate you, or that in any way, shape, or form I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, or I'm whatever. I want you to feel like your voice is heard. And I feel that if you're in an argument, and I'm not talking about a conversation, I'm talking about an actual argument, the apology at the end of it isn't to say you were wrong. It isn't to say that, they were wrong or anything in that regard. You're apologizing for the way that you conducted yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking the approach to say, I don't enjoy that. I don't want to have these arguments with you. I don't want to be in these knockdown, drag out fights with you.
Right.
And that should be your approach to build that communicative relationship with your significant other, because we're tried and true. History has said men don't communicate. And part of our reasoning for not communicating is that we're afraid it's going to get used against us. We don't tell other men when we're feeling vulnerable. We don't tell them when we're not feeling weak, or when we're feeling weak, or we're not feeling strong enough to carry on, because the scrutiny alone is brutal.
Right.
And I heard somebody say the other day, I think it was on a Theo Vaughn podcast, and it was, if anybody ever talked to me the way that I talk to me, I'd have to beat the shit out of that guy. Because
Because you beat yourself up in
right,
your brain.
we beat ourselves up harder than anybody else. And you and I have probably one of the strongest friendships I've got out of most of my really close friends.
Take that, Cody.
Yeah. in different retrospects. And so there are still things that I don't feel confident enough to talk to you about. And it's not even anything that I don't think you've gone through. But there are some battles that we've got to struggle through ourselves, and there's some battles that you need a friend. And we have to take solidarity in the fact that you've chosen a partner to be there for the rest of your life.
Right.
To be that person that you lay with at night, the person that you spend money with and raise children with. Why can you not communicate with that person? And I know a lot of guys that are going to be listening to this are going to be like, well, she's going to bring this up 6 months later.
Right.
Or this is going to come up in court if we ever get divorced or whatever. I think if you actively take the steps now to start breaking down your own walls and realizing that sometimes, and when you took your vows, it's for better or for worse. And relationships are not 50-50.
Well, if you remember when you were dating, you would call her every single day. You
2-3
talk,
times a day.
That's probably on the low end, but it was, you were talking all the time and talking about everything under the sun, whether it be plans or aspirations for work. Do you want kids? Do you want dogs? Do you not like dogs? Why do you not like dogs? There's the door because you don't like dogs. Get out of my house.
Right.
And so it's you got all kinds of different conversations that took place when you're dating, and then the guy goes and proposes or whatever, or the girl proposes if you roll that way, and the marriage takes place. Well, prior to the marriage, from the proposal to the marriage, everything gets focused on the wedding. That was the worst time of our relationship. I think was getting ready to get married.
Right.
And it wasn't. She did not go bridezilla or anything like that. But it was like, I didn't care about what color the napkins were, or whether people could sign a book saying that they were there. I haven't looked at that book since I got married. I don't even know where that book's at. But somehow we had to have one of those. No. And so it was one of the things where everything had focused on that, and then you get married, and it's like, okay, it's almost like we get lazy. And I'm talking to guys. You can roll your eyes all you want, as you're driving down the road listening to this. We get lazy once we've won the battle, for lack of a better term. Hey, you wanted to marry her, or you wanted to date her. You start dating her. You wanted to marry her. Now you're done. Now you just got to live with her. Well, that's when everything starts falling apart.
Right.
And that's where I think we got to realize that, hey, not having communication is dangerous. And in this world, or in this sense, it's dangerous for your marriage or your dating relationship if you're not quite there yet. But we understand this aspect everywhere else in society when it comes to communicating. All right.
Right.
And what I mean by that, there was a point where I was working in a refinery where they were producing ammonia. All right. Or I don't know what the final product was, but I know ammonia was one of the things because I went through an ammonia cloud. But anyway, our supervisor had a massive stutter. All right. And we were in a construction field. You can hate me all you want. You weren't there. We all did it.
Yep.
Obviously, we made fun of his stutter, right? And then what happened was we noticed the more we'd get him worked up, the worse the stutter would get, right? Where I'm talking about, not to the point, where he just couldn't, it took a minute to say stuff, I'm talking about shut down type. He couldn't talk,
Jesus.
nonverbal type stuff, and so it brought up, it was funny at first, and then we realized, hey, no, this might be an issue where, that we kind of have to knock off, because let's say it's a stressful situation, we're creating stress, he can't talk. What if it's a, issue of fire breaks out
Emergency or something
or
like that.
emergency?
Right,
We're inside of a vessel and he's outside. He's the safety guy. If he sees something, he can't talk to us because we've amplified his stutter here.
Right.
Then we're creating an issue for ourselves. And we see it with our line of work, whether it be law enforcement or military. If you got a guys, hey, we're about to go hit a house, and nobody talks to anybody, that goes downhill real quick.
Real
it
fast,
it
yeah.
has the ability to, somebody could get hurt, somebody could get injured, pretty severely. Somebody could die. You get, the possibilities are never good. Nobody says, man, I'm so glad we didn't talk about that before we did it. And so it's the same concept where if you're in your relationship with your wife or your girlfriend, why would you expect that to be good if you're not talking?
Right.
And I'm not saying, hey, does the hair on this toe look good?
Right.
Like, I'm not talking about stuff like that, but actually having conversations. Hey, when's the last time you asked her what her day was like?
Right.
And actually sat there and be prepared for it. Because I'm letting you know right now, you better be prepared.
Yep.
My wife tells me about everybody who's cut her off in traffic, who almost caused a wreck here. They sat in the red light. They wasn't paying attention. They're texting and driving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't. That's called traffic. Like, that's just
Right,
driving.
right.
It's, might as well say the sky is blue.
Yep.
But you got to be prepared for that conversation.
I'm going to forewarn every man out there. The woman you married will never look as good as the day you first met her or the day you married her. And if you're looking at her 10, 15, 20, 25 years later down the road,
I do not condone this message.
and you're going...
This is strictly John. If you decide to just have a coffee podcast, let me know. We'll separate now, but I'm not in agreement with this.
If you're looking at her years later down the road and you're thinking to yourself, she let herself go, or
Wonder why he's single.
anything like that, take a look at yourself in the mirror first. And just remember that we all change. So the way that you used to communicate when you first met her to where you are now has got to change as well. And we're going to get old one day. We're going to be wrinkly. We're just not going to be as attractive as we were in our 20s. I know from experience. Dick. But you've got to not just change the way that you do everything in your personal self, as far as like, my 20-year-old self could jump out of a bed. 39-year-old self.
I don't roll out of the bed.
No.
Like,
I'm slow moving.
There's a series of stretches,
Right,
to
right.
warm up to in
While in
preparation.
bed laying
Right.
down before I
Right.
even try to get up. So you have
That's
to...
my sit up for the day.
Right.
That's half of it at least.
Right. You have to get yourself in the mindset to know that the day you met her and today are completely different days. And we've got to broach things as we change and we progress and we get older and hopefully wiser, that we've got to broach and approach her or him in a different manner because we learn and we change and
Right.
we adapt. And so keep that in mind. And some guys that we've talked to, in our line of work, whether they're coworkers or on calls or whatever, have a mindset that is just not prepared for the partner that they either have now or she's adapted or become. And that's why you have failures in marriages and relationships, because we get stuck. And us men are the worst. We get stuck in the routine and we don't ever take the opportunity to change and
Right.
become better. We have a friend who's changed. He's trying to chase a woman, so he's doing things that he thinks that she would like line dancing. He's trying to learn to become a better dancer. I'm trying to dance around this without being direct.
I got it. I know who you're talking about.
So he's taking an approach to win this girl back by learning to dance, but he's not realizing it's too little too late.
Right.
He didn't take the
He
opportunity.
missed all the cues along the way.
Right. And so we've got to stop turning them. You can't look at your significant other, male or female. You cannot look at them and say, I've won the prize, I'm done. You've got to keep pushing that drive. And this isn't just a one-way street. This is an argument that you hear mostly from women that say, he stopped chasing me. You've got to go at it, both of you. You've got to, number one, stop opening the door to outside sources. But you've got to look at that significant other and remember not just why you fell in love with them, why you're still with them, and keep pursuing that on a regular basis. I'm not saying every day go buy flowers. I'm not saying any of that. But you can't get comfortable in the relationship and think that 20 years ago when you were like, hey, hot stuff, you want to go for a ride in my Mustang?
Right.
That's not going to work 20 years later when you don't have the Mustang anymore, and if you did, your stomach would stop the steering wheel from spinning. You no judgment. We've got to keep. Did you stutter exhale?
No, I had to breathe for a minute. Realize you hurt my feelings.
It sounded like a cry exhale. So that's really the kind of the basis, the drive for this is building this communication, because we go to so many different homes that people are in arguments and fights and everything else, and a simple conversation could solve it. Now, granted, not everything, okay? Obviously, if you're dealing with somebody who has a problem, an addiction, or something like that.
Or is verbally abusive or something
Right,
like that,
right.
it's a different animal. But talk about just everyday mundane things. This is applicable.
Right. I mean, how many times have we gone to somebody's home where it was an argument over the dishes or the last piece of chicken? We've been to that
I went
fight.
to one time years and years ago. I think it was I had just started, and still thinking, hey, had my ideas and theories on what law enforcement was going to be.
Right.
And the wife had called because the husband had not changed the batteries in the smoke detector.
Right.
And I'm like, you've got to be like that.
Yeah.
If anything, that is a fire department issue.
Right.
But no, it's. I think a lot of things. If we could just open that line of communication, it's going to be something we're definitely going to have to we're going to have to extend over into the another episode.
Right.
But I think a little bit of communication goes a long way.
Yeah.
Where one, just to keep the relationships that you got, because a lot of y'all are ornery and miserable to be with. I don't know if you realize that.
Right. We're there for 5, 15, 20 minutes, and we don't want to be there that long.
Not even from that. I've got friends who are just guys in general. The older we get, we think it's like maybe a badge of honor to just be grumpy.
Right. Grumpy old man.
Walk around with a grumpy look on your face. It's like, all right, you're miserable with yourself, which means you're miserable with everybody else.
Right.
So try talking a little bit and maybe turn that frown upside down, bud.
Right.
And so, but we joke, but
And I think, honestly, most of that comes from the role models that we had. And so the reason I say this is I tell prospective dates that my goal when I find my person is somebody that I can be a grumpy old man with, but I don't want to be grumpy old man with anybody but that person. And so I know that my grandfather was a grumpy old man to everybody except for my grandmother.
right.
And so, like, in my brain, that's how I foresee that relationship. And some of us we've missed the mark. Some of us are just grumpy old men not having that softer side to be with
you're mean
somebody.
to everybody, and then you wonder why they leave.
Right, like why the dog doesn't even want to sit by you on the porch,
Right.
So that's just my caveat to that. I think we have to have a broader perspective of life and realize that there's more to life than just being grumpy ass old men. We've got to find a brighter side, and we've got to find a silver lining to our happiness.
Right.
And a lot of that starts with having good communication skills. And I think that if you're capable of convincing a woman to not just see you more than one time, but to also marry you,
then you're capable of talking to her.
You're capable of having a conversation.
You already tricked her.
Right. You've played the game well enough. She's in.
Right.
but keep her. And you keep her by opening that line of communication, because we can have conversations all day about the great things that happen. We can have conversations about goals, ideas, where we want to be in 5 years. We'll stop and have that conversation about what's stopping you from getting to where you want to be in 5 years. What's made your day a shit show, and what's made your day amazing. Have the same conversations, and do it in a way that you're not unloading it on her or him. You're laying it on the table.
Right.
So that everything's out there, and they can see what you're dealing with, you can see what they're dealing with, and you guys can pick and choose those battles to handle together. And I think in the long run, if we all took the time to just start with yourself, we all have conversations with ourselves, pregame it. Plan it in your brain how you're going to broach the subject with her.
Right.
And obviously don't walk in and unload everything. Let the conversation go organically, because sometimes it's a lot on the brain, but you can't take everything weighing on you and put it on her. You got to go one thing at a time.
Right.
And address one issue at a time. And like I said, if I think if everybody takes a moment to look within themselves and then broach it that way, and to be fair, some of the things that go on in your day-to-day life or your day-to-day relationship, you're going to, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this, or these are some things I see problems with, and they may end your relationship. That's a reality that's out there. But in the long term, from experience, if that's what happens, then that wasn't meant to be. And there's somebody out there for everybody. So don't feel like if you walk in and unload the baggage.
Way to kill the mood there, John. So, guys, we want to say thank y'all for taking a moment and listen to this episode. If you liked it, give us a like, follow, share, subscribe, comment, all those wonderful buttons that you got that y'all haven't been using. So we see that y'all are watching. We see that y'all are doing.
Appreciate that.
I need you to hit all them buttons for us, guys. We'd appreciate it. But for now, that's going to wrap us up, guys. If you want to send us an email, we'd like to know what you're going through, what you'd like to hear about. Right now we're doing all the coming up with all the topics ourselves. If there's a specific topic that you want to hear about, shoot us an email. It's coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com.
Yep.
We'd really like to hear from you and give us a little bit of help. On setting some of these podcasts up. So, guys, for now, that's going to end it up. And toodaloo.
So stupid.